Kristina and Matt Orlić, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Kristina and Matt, I'm really curious about how Qure got started. Could you take us back to that moment when you first thought, hey, we should create our own skincare brand? What was happening in your lives at the time?
Yeah, for sure. So I became pretty obsessed with skincare because I was always trying to solve my own skin problems. I had terrible skin my whole life and just really ruined my confidence. And then Matthew moved overseas to Croatia, and I used to send him skincare packages, like with little parcels with notes on it saying on Mondays you'll wear this mask, on Tuesdays you'll do this. Anyway, I went to go see him in Croatia one time and his skin was just amazing. And I was like, wow, those products are doing you really good. And he obviously confessed to me that he hasn't used any of the products that I sent. And he showed me this massive industrial size LED light panel. And he goes, this is what I've been using. And I remember looking at it, I was like, what is this? And he just basically talked me through all the skin and health benefits of it. And then naturally I was like, okay, I want one. Where do I get one from? And he's like, well, I paid about $4,000 or $5,000 for it. And at that moment,
What,
my
one
heart
panel?
just, yeah, like a big one. It was like the whole body, full industrial size.
And this is like 5 years ago.
Yeah,
So it was a while
yeah.
ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, and obviously with that kind of price tag, my heart just sank and I knew I obviously couldn't afford it. So we sort of had like a light bulb moment, I guess. We're like, okay, we need to create something for the face. And that's pretty much how it started because we just thought everyone deserves to have good skin and to feel good in their skin. And, there shouldn't be this barrier of these expensive skincare technologies that you can't actually access. So then we just set out on a mission to do that, and that's how pretty much the idea came about.
Okay, so let's step back a little bit. So Kristina, before Qure, you had quite a background in skincare training and marketing, right?
Yes.
I want to find out like how that experience shaped your approach. And Matt, you worked with like major brands like Under Armour and Manchester United, right? Like how that influenced your strategy. I'd love to kind of learn about that transition, some of the things that you learned in the past and how you applied it to the beginning stages at least.
Yeah, sure. I think we're fairly privileged at this stage in developing Qure because of our extensive histories. So I've been developing products and brands for the last 18 years. My business model before was develop products and brands for retailers in Australia and in the UK. So I would think of a brand or a product, I'd create it and I'd sell it through mass retailers. And then one day I lost like $5 million overnight when I was about 25 years old, when one of the retailers went bust. And that's when I started to take some brands that I had online. So we had experience of developing products, in China. We had an office in China, product development team for the last 10 to 12 years. So when trying to bring this product to market, we had a history of like a roadmap or a blueprint on how to do it. So that's how it kind of started. And for us, we just went to, essentially the process for anyone listening is that if you have an idea, you just go and try and find a product design or product development company that kind of specializes in that technology that you're looking to bring out. And that's what we did. We found a couple of vendors that specialize in red light therapy and worked with them to create the mask. Because Kristina had some novel ideas that she wanted to implement, like having a customizable feature in the mask where you have an app where you can like do anti-aging on the forehead and anti-acne on the chin. That's what her concerns were. Yeah, so all the world's first in terms of customizable feature.
Yeah.
And I learned enough throughout the past when I launched other brands is that if we didn't have this like differentiating factor, it was extremely hard to compete if it was just a commodity product.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard to get top tier influencers if it's a Me Too product. It's very hard to get onto retailers if it's a Me Too product. So throughout our journey, we always learned that we had to create some USP, some differentiating factor, whether it's just a design or some feature that allows us to stand out and give us this beautiful flywheel when it comes to marketing our products. So when we get the high tier influencers, brands want to align themselves with other brands or innovative products, and then it's easier to market, and everything all the magic happens once you have a great product to obviously work with. So that was kind of our roadmap.
How did you lose $5 million overnight?
Yeah, so this was like a major retailer in Australia. They were $1 billion retailer. They were called Dick Smith, and they were my biggest customers. And overnight, they filed for bankruptcy, and I was left with a $5 million loss and a new client to try and find.
you had inventory. They just were like they owed you 5 million and they didn't
Yeah,
pay.
pretty much. So
Oh,
owed me millions of dollars,
oh
and
my
that business
gosh.
almost went bankrupt as well because that was our major client.
Yeah.
So then I had to kind of rebuild from scratch because a lot of our eggs were in that. And I learned a couple lessons. Obviously, concentration risk. Too many eggs were in that one basket with that one retailer,
Right.
and and yeah. But then again, like it's very hard to connect the dots looking forward. You can only do it looking back. It
Yeah.
was inevitably it was the best thing that happened to me because then I learned to go digital and go online. And that's
Yeah.
when we had massive success with Qure, going from zero to $50 million in 3 years because of all of our experience in digital marketing.
Yeah, and Christina, it sounds like Matt brought a lot of this operational experience from the situations that he just described, and immediately you came up with these ideas, customizing different parts, which just strikes me as like actually a really good idea. I haven't heard that before. Like oh, like anti-acne here and anti-aging here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just came from me trying to solve a personal, I guess, problem of mine because I wanted to treat acne, but I also wanted to treat, aging, signs of aging. So I did read a article, I think in Vogue Business, and it spoke about how the future of skincare was all about personalization and customization. And then it just like clicked to me, like, wow, we need to create a customizable LED mask that can treat both those concerns on different areas of the face and basically just adapts to your changing skin concerns. So it didn't mean like you had to invest into two devices. You had the one device that sort of did it all and just worked with your skin.
Yeah, it strikes me as a difficult thing to do. You're just not, it sounds like a sophisticated skincare brand with a kind of complex device. So how did you learn? So Matt bought this $4,000 panel in Croatia. I'm trying to kind of like understand how you went for, like, first of all, did you ship it back to Australia? What
No,
did you
still
do?
there.
You
Still
just
there.
you just left it there.
Yeah, I still live in Croatia. I'm
Oh,
here
you
just
still live there?
I'm just
Yeah.
here visiting for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Visiting. Okay, yeah. And then how did Christina learn about, like, how did you take that, understand how this thing works, and then go explain to manufacturers, I need the face version of this, well, customizable from an app. I mean, it sounds like simple, but it sounds actually very complicated.
Well, when we had this light bulb moment, we realized that we weren't really geniuses. There was a lot of competitors on the market with like LED face masks. So basically it just took us going through a whole bunch of suppliers, manufacturers, seeing what they currently do in their like product lineup, and then just talking to them really. I think that when you have an innovative idea, that's something different, suppliers actually really want to work with you to bring that idea to life because it's something they've never done before. And they can see that there's a gap in the market, so they'll want to work with you. So I think that's how it really came to life. And obviously, when you haven't done something before, there's a lot of trial and error involved. It took us over 2 years to develop the mask. So yeah, it wasn't too easy because you don't really have a reference point to sort of go back on, like, oh, how this person did it. We're doing it from scratch. And yeah, it did take us a while, but we got there in the end.
So 2 years, wow. So like, did you invest your own money into it? Did you find investors, if you're able to share?
Yeah, we invested our own money,
Yeah.
We're self-funded.
How much?
Probably close to $500,000.
Yeah.
Really? It costs that much? So this is not something that just anybody can jump into. It does require
Probably not.
some serious
Probably not.
investment.
Yeah, I mean, that probably in terms of the startup capital we needed to start the brand, the stock, the product development, everything encompassing, probably about $500,000, yeah.
So let's talk about the first product, the lead mask. What was the process like, taking something that typically costs thousands of dollars in professional settings and making it accessible for home use? Like, were there moments where you thought, like, can we actually pull this off? Did you have any doubts that thing was, I mean, obviously 2 years, I'm sure it was a roller coaster with ups and downs.
Yeah, I think people often think that coming up with the idea is like 90% of the work, right? But in reality, actually bringing the idea to life is where all the work goes into. And as you start to develop that idea, you always are faced with new opportunities, new problems that you have to overcome. And there's certain trade-offs that you need to make, which I think is one of the hardest parts, where if you want a faster operating device, then that means a bigger bigger battery. That means it's going to be heavier on the face for the user. So there's so many complications and things to consider that I never imagined I would need to think of throughout the process. But I guess that's the most enjoyable part about it. And then when you finally launch a product and you finally bring it to life, and then you see customers' reviews and their before and afters, yeah, it just makes everything really worth it, especially when I talk about how we improve the quality of their lives and we see how many people that we've helped. It just all makes everything worth it.
Mm-hmm. So 2 years of iterations, trials. At what point did you say to yourself, okay, this thing is working now, so it's ready to launch? Like, what was your criteria? Did you, I imagine you had found some people to try this with, and you had to see some kind of before and after, as you mentioned. What were you exactly looking for in the before and after? Like, how visible did it have to be in order to kind of feel that comfort level for you to say that, okay, it's time to launch now?
It's a good question, but I think we didn't reinvent the wheel in terms of the technology. The technology's been proven for years, and there's hundreds of studies around the technology. So we weren't worried about the efficacy of the technology. We were more just trying to create a new form factor with some unique mechanisms on how to use the technology. And once those features worked as described, we knew we were confident enough to go to market because we were just so confident in the technology from my personal experience and all the literature out there.
Gotcha. So, Matt, you were in Croatia, and Kristina, you were in Sydney at the time. Were you thinking, okay, let's launch in Europe, let's launch in Australia or US? Like, how did you make that decision in the beginning?
I think for me personally, because I've been in business for those 18 years, and a lot of my businesses were like in Australia, some in the UK, and what I realized is that going into these smaller markets, I was doing the same amount of work, but my opportunity was just that much smaller. So it didn't make sense for us to go into Australia or Europe. We wanted to go into the biggest market in the world where we can have the biggest impact and the biggest scale, because we're putting the same time and energy in whatever we're doing, but going to a bigger market just gives us a bigger opportunity. Because at the end of the day, if we create a Facebook ad, it's the same effort required to make it in Australia or in the US, but then the US, obviously the market size, the cap is a lot larger.
So what does it take for international entrepreneurs like yourselves to live elsewhere but launch a product in the US? Did you have to come here, meet people? Obviously, I imagine manufacturers were not going to be in the US anyway.
No, so I actually moved to Croatia for the last 4 years. I just moved back to Sydney. So we did work together in the office. But pretty much we just engaged with a lot of partners that were in the US, especially dermatologists, to help build our credibility and to help educate our customers on why the product works and things like that.
But operationally, all you need is a third-party warehouse.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you can sell in the US. So it's not as hard as people might think.
Yeah. And your warehouse was in Croatia, or was it in Asia or somewhere else?
US.
A warehouse is in the US?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. But it was manufactured where? China, of course. So I noticed your lead mask was FDA cleared for both anti-aging and anti-acne. Was that a difficult thing to do?
I think it took a lot longer than we imagined because we had the app part of it. I think there was like a different level of certification that we had to do because of this feature. And I think at that time there was a big backlog from COVID. So we did have to wait a while, I think about a year's time. But I mean, it wasn't too difficult because you just need to provide paperwork in terms of clinical studies and just go through the process really.
So let's talk about marketing, getting the word out in the early days. You mentioned you were getting in touch with the dermatologists in the US. Just going back to the first year of operations after the product is on sale, what were some of the marketing channels that were really effective for you?
I think YouTube really worked well for us because our product requires a lot of education. I mean, it's not like your typical skincare device or product where perhaps like a serum that you feel it, you read the ingredients, you put on your skin, you see results fairly quickly. With LED light therapy, it's like a long-term gain. So you really need to educate the customers on why it worked and how it worked. So we did need the help of dermatologists, and I think that YouTube worked well for us because of the long-form education that allowed people to do on that platform.
Mm-hmm. So for people who are listening, aspiring entrepreneurs who might want to develop physical products someday, what's the one thing about the product development that caught you completely off guard? Something you wish someone had told you before you had started?
I don't know if anything caught me off guard besides the constant challenges that you'll face and the decisions that you'll just need to make in terms of the trade-offs. So you always have an idea of you want it to be super comfortable, super quick in terms of treatment time, and you have all these things you want to mark off your list. But in reality, as you go through the process, there's certain things that you can't do, or there's certain things that you need to sacrifice in order to get something else. So there's always a trade-off that you need to make. I think I wasn't prepared in terms of how many trade-offs you need to make. I always thought, like, if you wanted something done, you can just get it done. There's always a way. There is always a way, but it comes at a sacrifice to something else.
So your brand seems to really emphasize making professional-grade skincare accessible to everyone. How do you balance creating high-quality products while keeping them affordable enough to fulfill that mission? How did you think about your pricing when you were first launching?
I think it was important for us to still stay affordable because I think also helps that I was the target market in terms of when Matthew presented me this technology. I felt the pain of not being able to afford it. So I think it was super important for us to create products that were still in that affordable range, but also it had to be on the higher scale of pricing because of the technology that we were using and because of the quality. So it is still an investment. It's not a cheap cost. So we really also needed to educate the customer why it's an investment, why you should invest your money. So then it also seemed a bit more affordable.
Mm-hmm. I remember seeing you're growing 460% year over year. That strikes me as really remarkable. What was that journey like? And is it going up? Is it going down? How do you kind of, if you compare it to the earlier days, what do you see in the marketing landscape right now in 2025 that you think might be working better or not as well? What are some of the trends that you're seeing if you want to be able to keep up that kind of growth, or maybe something similar to it?
I think the biggest challenges we're finding is just people that are coming in and copying our products.
Yeah.
And it's not about the copying the products, because their products, in terms of the quality and efficacy, won't be as good as ours. I'm not worried about that. But it's just the way they deploy their marketing messages. They use illegal ad copy where it's like, and claims, which we can't because we're building a brand. And a lot of these competitors that are coming in are just cash grab little businesses where they'll come in, copy a product, use really aggressive marketing, like you can get wrinkle-free skin in 2 weeks using this product. And consumers are desperate to fix the problems they have, and they buy into this type of marketing, which then affects our product and our brand, because people are buying similar products and saying it doesn't work based on the ads that it claims to work, and they're taking market share away from us and creating a negative kind of ocean in the market around our products because they're making these false claims. And they're acquiring customers at a scale that potentially we can't because they're making these claims. Mm-hmm. So these are the biggest challenges that we've had to deal with as we grow, and we bring awareness to the market around these products. And our success dictates that they can have success as well, which is kind of the biggest issue that we're kind of finding at the moment.
Hmm. You said illegal marketing copy. Is there anything anyone can do about that, or are these not American-based companies? So how can they get away with that?
I mean, it's very hard and it's a very lengthy process. In reality, you can't do much about it. And if these people, if they get shut down, they'll just start up another name and they're launched again tomorrow. So, you waste all this money in terms of your legal efforts, but you don't really get too far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
they really just poison the whole market, and I think they create a lot of trust issues among the consumers. and which is, it's hard still to build back that credibility and that trust, because like what Matthew said, once someone associates a category with something that doesn't work or unreliable product, then it's very hard to convince them that it's because I didn't use the right product that it still works. I think our brand protection agency took down maybe like 150 cases last month of people just taking our content, our customers before and after photos, and putting it on their website to deceive customers. Yeah, they even have like fake user studies.
And that was like last month alone.
Yeah, last month alone. Yeah. That's all that we picked up. I can't imagine how many we didn't pick up. So yeah, it's a real problem out there. And like, I guess we hope to see that in the future, maybe there'll be stricter compliance, stricter regulations.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your collaboration strategy. How do you approach working with influencers and content creators? You mentioned you were working with dermatologists. What other types of influencers do you work with? And what makes for a successful partnership from your perspective?
It's you.
I think we sort of knew that once we got the product into people's hands and they felt the quality, they experienced innovation themselves, it was quite easy to get them on board because they would want to be affiliated with the brand. Another part of it is the technology that we use. It's, especially dermatologists, they love LED light therapy. They use it in clinics. So they naturally want to endorse it too because they know it works and they have full faith in the technology. So it wasn't too hard when we were reaching out and collaborating because we just knew that we needed to get the product in people's hands. They would see the difference and yeah, they would happily want to promote it or share it with their audience.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about your approach to storytelling. So you told me your story, so that there's a personal origin story here. Do you think, how much do you think that matters? And how have you leveraged that narrative in your marketing? Do you think it makes a big difference for the founders of a brand to have their own personal story attached to the brand? Or how do you feel about that?
I think it's more important than ever, and to be honest, we haven't done a great job of it. We just started this process now this year, and especially moving into the world that's AI first. I think the brands that have a personal founder story attached to it, and you can see the people behind the brands, are going to accelerate their growth. And you see it everywhere. You see Mark Zuckerberg, growing his personal brand. You see Elon Musk growing their personal brand. I think, in the future, you're going to have founder-led brands, with the founders being the face of the brands, and people are going to trust the founder and buy into the founder before they buy into the brand. I think that's where the future is going, and that's where we're trying to make an effort to be more public and create more content and show people, the people behind the brand, and humanize it really. So that's a big initiative for us this year.
Mm-hmm. Just going back to the early days again, you'd mentioned you spent $500,000 of your own money. Just to talk about that a little bit, was that a deliberate choice? Have you considered taking external investment? Now that the brand is really successful, I'm sure that you probably have a lot more ownership now. So probably in retrospect, you feel pretty good about that. Yeah. But if you were to start a new brand now, I mean, this is like a very popular argument and debate, bootstrapping versus taking VC money. Obviously, you've bootstrapped in this case, but was it difficult? Did that put you in a difficult position? If you were to start something new, would you do it the same way again?
I mean, I've never known anything else but to bootstrap. Like that whole VC world to me was like
foreign,
very foreign. So I never thought I even had an option, right? This whole concept of VC going to raise money for an idea that doesn't exist, based on some idea you have, it was never an option to me because I always had the money as well, I guess. But I think everyone should bootstrap their idea because they should get like their minimum viable product out, get proof of concept, and then if they need money to grow the business, then they should go to VCs. But going to VCs before you have a proof of concept, I think, unless the concept is so novel, it's probably a waste of time.
Mm-hmm. I remember seeing that you mentioned somewhere while building a business, building a business is tough. And if you don't absolutely love it, you'll quit when things get hard. Can you share a specific moment when things got really hard for you and challenging and you maybe started doubting and questioning? What kept you going?
Yeah, I think there was lots of moments where you're doubting if this is going to work or what you're doing. I think especially in the early days where we obviously had to fork out a lot of money for the startup costs and development. Plus we had like normal startup costs of a business. We couldn't afford too many employees. So I definitely worked 14, 15, 16-hour days. I wore multiple hats to try and save costs, to try and really do every aspect of the business that I could. And I learned that a lot from my previous experience. And there was many times there where I was overtired. I didn't know what I was doing. I was doing everything from ad copy to website copy to email marketing to social media, customer service, logistics. And there was a lot of meltdown moments where I was like, oh my gosh, why don't I just get a normal 9-to-5 job? And I think that's what makes a difference between if you're going to make it or if you're going to be successful. Because if I didn't love what I was doing or if I didn't have a purpose of the journey, I would have definitely quit. I have a good work ethic overall, but those moments are very hard to overcome and to push through and to be persistent. And yeah, if you don't love what you do, you're just going to quit.
I'm interested in your working dynamic as siblings. How do you balance your different strengths? Matt mentioned somewhere that I'm offense, she's defense. What does that mean? And how does that look like in your day-to-day operations?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, the highs are highs, the lows are lows. Yeah. I'm primarily offense, meaning that I'm more like sales and the marketing side of the business, and she's more product development and sometimes operations. That's where we kind of balance it out. That's where both our strengths are. So then that's how we kind of align. But ultimately, you do have challenges where I'm pushing for sales, and then Kristina is trying to protect the brand. And then it's off brand. She goes, why the fuck's that look like a post-it note ad? I want that part of the brand. And I'm like, well, it converts. I don't give a shit. And then, they're the kind of the challenges that we have in terms of different competing ideologies. Because there's no real way to grow a brand, right? There's no like linear path. This is exactly how you can do it. As a founder, you build a brand based on your personality and the way you want to build it. That's how, in terms of the team you hire, in terms of the way you want to do your marketing. And that's when probably the challenges come because our personality is completely different. And we have a different way of doing things. And that's probably the biggest challenge, is trying to align both our personalities and the way we want to grow the brand. That's that.
So, Matt, you're still in Croatia just visiting, but Kristina moved to Sydney, so there's a bit of a time difference. What are your working hours?
We've set up the team quite well now, so we are both just more on a high level. We're not so much in the trenches anymore. So we don't need to really be on the same time zone. We just have 2 weekly calls where we catch up, we update each other, and that's about it, really.
What are the teams?
A lot of them are in Croatia, so we still have an office there. I think there's about 20 in the office.
No, 14.
14, yeah. And then the rest are just digital, like online.
So I'm curious about your vision for the future of skincare and beauty tech. Where do you see the industry heading in the next few years, and how is Qure positioning itself for those changes?
I think the industry is still heading in the way that it has been in the last couple of years, with technology being at the forefront, because consumers are no longer wanting just a cream or a serum that can only do so much for your skin. They're really looking for science-backed solutions to the skincare concerns that they can do conveniently from home, and technology is the way to do that. So we're just going to be proceeding the same way that we have been, where we're just bringing clinical grade technology to people's homes that's just convenient to use for an affordable price.
Matt, you had mentioned AI first when we were talking about stories. What do you think about the role of AI in the brands of the future? How do you use it now? Where do you think it's going?
Yeah, I think it's going to be enormous. I think it already is. And I think that any company and any individual that isn't using AI on a daily basis is being irresponsible. I think that a lot of the low leverage tasks will be taken away from AI, and it's going to free up a lot of room for creativity in the workforce. And I think a lot of staff members are going to have to use the creative side of their brain to problem solve and use those skill sets, because the days are almost gone of these low leverage tasks and data inputs and kind of, anything that requires really linear thinking patterns are going to be taken over by AI. So people are going to have to really step into a new version of themselves and start problem solving and being creative. Otherwise, they won't have a role in any of the companies, any e-commerce businesses moving forward.
Let me ask you a question. Do you envision this future to be true? People using AI agents to do shopping. So instead of going to your website, agents will go do a comparison for skincare solutions and make a decision where to get it. And then agent comes to purchase to your website somehow without the person going. Do you think this is going to come true?
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%, yeah. That's the scary part. So.
Yeah, it's a bit scary.
Yeah. No, I don't think we're far away either. I think we're just years away from that happening.
Yeah, maybe weeks away with the pace that things are going. You've been building this brand for a while. If you were to start another brand tomorrow, or maybe, in addition to this one, what category would you pick?
I would develop a framework for deciding what product to choose. And there's a couple of rules that I would set. Like, for example, I'd want the AOV to be over $100. I'd want it to solve a problem. I want the product to be used every day, so it's like a LTV play. I want it to be potentially big enough product-wise so drop shippers can't come in. You need localized warehousing. And then I want some sort of maybe vanity metric in the product, because I think vanity is just a fantastic way to market a product that people are going to care about the looks for till they die. So that's kind of like a framework that I build out before deciding what product to choose. And if it ticked all those boxes, then I know I had a pretty good shot. And also, the last one probably is that the category should be trending 5 to 10% each year. So that's kind of the way I would think about it.
So that's your framework. Have you put that framework to use in your head? Do you have something in mind? Maybe supplements, maybe personal care, maybe anti-aging,
So my rule as I've matured in business is is to do only one business at a time. I had 13 at one stage, and I was just immature the way I used to think through things. I think at this stage of life, it's understanding that focusing on one thing and putting all your effort and energy into one thing will make you far more money than it will, distributing that time and energy to 10 different things or 2 different things. Because ultimately, we're playing a game where it's like a sport, and I'm going to compete against another founder who's only doing one thing, and I'm not arrogant enough to think that I'm going to beat that other founder by splitting up my energy and focus between 2 different things.
My final question: top 2 problems giving you a headache right now, and top 2 priorities you're excited about for the year.
I think one of the problems will definitely be these fake competitors that are poisoning the market. It burns me every time I see it online, and they're constantly popping up, and it feels like it's getting bigger and bigger, and nothing's being done to stop them. So that's definitely one of the problems I'm experiencing.
Yeah, and I think the opportunities, I think we're really excited. We're one of the first brands to get accepted on TikTok Shop from a medical perspective. And TikTok Shop, we're allowed to, now we can get affiliates on board and get influencers to create content and get large commissions. And they can start promoting products that, by our brand, that actually been proven in the market, that have been recommended by those dermatologists, and where in the past you couldn't do that. And I think it's an amazing opportunity for creators and influencers to generate huge amounts of commission, selling a reputable brand that actually works and has been proven to deliver results.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Kristina and Matt Orlić, Qure Skincare. Thank you for sharing your journey with me.
Thank you so much.